Penicillin, Eli. Metamorphosis here. Enough things to run through, enough things to observe, lot of things to analyze. The way to find a way forward out of this COVID experience. It's 12 months since the world was introduced to COVID, the coronavirus 2. Just about last year, this time, that the scientists in China recognized that there was something way off, tried to report it, and we understand that he was suppressed information. Ultimately, that scientist died. And from that time until this time, this planet has not been the same. From that time to this time, the whole global structure has been discombobulated. Industries, institutions, individuals falling apart. Although I and I, as African black people, position ourselves psychologically to deal with the issues that are brimming within the dimensions of health, within the dimension of economics, within politics, within science. Everything now is up for scrutiny. Everything that black people have been exposed to from the Columbus Project began in 1494. All is being exposed. But it's time to also develop an analysis that will take us beyond COVID. I and I as black man need to be able to see beyond this drama that we're all wrapped up in. And one of the ways, I think, to get a grip of this pandemic, because it is novel to all who are basically living in this time, but the pandemic is not novel to the earth. But experience is what determines our entire outcome. And now we are living through this. And everybody is in an uproar. And people are being forced to come up with all sort of explanations and justifications for things like a lockdown, things like the shutting down of the entertainment industry, the back-to-school industry under collapse. Whole families are under distress. The suicide rate is rising, and in the most strangest of areas amongst our very young children. So what is happening on this planet needs a specific way of viewing it. And I cannot rely upon CNN and ABC and CBC and all these various letters communication institutions that basically have their own agenda. So I think that the metamorphosis will take a position in order to analyze. And the position is going to be grounded in science. It's going to be grounded in history. It's going to be grounded in the knowledge of Africa and black people's life. One of the things I really want to zero in on early, and it will take us beyond the pandemic, is that there are certain things that are occurring while the pandemic is going on, but we are so preoccupied that we are not able to focus on anything else beyond survival. But hear this. The role of science is a dominant field today, especially under this virus attack. Solutions are being sought in science and not in religion. And for the previous 400 years, basically, I would say, black people have been convinced that solutions are easily gotten through religion than through science. And I have been conditioned to pray and hope, and to hope and to pray. And within that hoping and praying, we wish for a result. In 2020, there is hardly anybody calling upon any spiritual powers to resolve the pandemic. The cries for science to produce a vaccine to resolve this issue. But let us look beyond a little bit into something that's happening in the world of science that is not really necessarily connected to the virus itself. You know that as much as the countries of the world struggle for power, they are united in one specific agenda. And that agenda now has nothing to do with planet Earth. So I want to begin this metamorphosis by investigating some events that are unfolding that really has nothing to do with the Earth itself, with the planet itself, nothing to do with the condition that we face presently. And what is really happening is that India, China, the United States, Japan, the European Union, Russia, the UK, these are nations that are what I'm going to call hell-bent on being able to land on a planet that is millions of miles away from Earth. Now, in the 60s and the 50s, the Europeans developed an ambition to explore the stars. Check this now, you know. They began to develop the ambition to explore the heavens. And the first site that was tried to arrive at amongst these nations was the moon. And let us remember now that the Soviet Union and the United States, at the time, they were two superpowers, were focusing a lot of their resources on trying to get to the moon. Well, the Americans claimed victory, and they claimed that they landed on the moon with Neil Armstrong in 1969. Since that time, many other nations from the group I've mentioned have set their sights also on the moon. Now I'm speaking, and I'm not speaking to and involving African and black people because we are not a part of these missions. I want you to make note of that. This is an African-centered black perspective of science as we know it in the world in this time. So at a level, it is really the white man and the yellow man who have been making grounds within the realm of science and space. Now, the Europeans and the Americans went further to develop what was called now an international space station. And the nations of the world have come together outside of Africa, and they've set up a station that travels around the Earth. It's 225 miles off the planet, and the astronauts who are occupying that particular station, they've been there for 10 years, rotating. Japanese, Englishmen, all nations, all races except the black man. This International Space Station is not interracial to the extent that black people are involved. We are not involved in the space station itself, but our brains are being used on the ground to help to design certain things that are required for space travel. Now, why I'm saying this in the beginning is because the mission has moved from the moon, where other nations have also touched down, and the mission has now moved to Mars. Black people, we have to ask questions like, what is so important about Mars? Why so much of the resources of the earth are being channeled into vessels and vehicles to get to Mars. What is it about Mars that has captured the imagination of these other nations? And I'm saying to the item, as black people, we should be the ones who are at the front of trying to retrieve our history. And by that I mean, if the rest of the world recognize that there's something significant about Mars, then I should begin to ask the questions as well. What is it about Mars? And the most recent revelation, because look here now, the man them have buggy driving on the Mars, them have things orbiting Mars, taking pictures. A vessel just left Earth a couple months ago to reach Mars in February, where they're going to land on the Mars and then send out a robot and a helicopter, all kind of things going on there. The most recent revelation is that they have discovered that there are lakes of fresh water under the surface of Mars. Now, this discovery is key and critical to scientific knowledge, because we here on Earth hold it that water is life. Them man, you know, has gone out into Mars, and after years of searching and recovering and this and that, they have finally concluded that there's Mars, that there's water on the planet. What does that mean? It means that it is potentially possible for the planet Mars to sustain life as we know it on Earth. Where does that take us with that type of information? What it reveals, and I want to think about it carefully, that if water is really on Mars, below the surface, and the surface today is not habitable because of certain conditions, what is suggesting to the man on Earth, you know, is that life may not really have originated on this planet. And I want the black people to take note of this particular set of reasoning, that life could perhaps have developed on another planet. That type of research and information challenges the whole religious ideology that I and I have been holding on to for the last 500 years. Because the religious ideology tells us in a book, in one line, that in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. It does not tell us about Mars. It does not tell us about Jupiter. It does not tell us about Venus. So those planets that exist as a reality are not mentioned in the book that we have been given about our creation. So check it again now. We're going to take the reason from this position. They have given us a book called a holy book, a book of truth. And the first page and on the first line of that book, it says to the black people and the people in the world in general that in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. The other nations who are trying to get on Mars do not embrace this story, because apparently the other nations recognize that there are other creations that exist. This reason wants to challenge those who think that Earth is the only place that life is and can be. Because if we extend the reasoning and begin to really recognize life forces and civilizations that occupied on Mars, were those civilizations black people? Were those civilizations pigmented people? Were black people residents on Mars at some time in our history? Metamorphosis. planet Mars, 63 million miles away. Check that. 63 million miles away. And we have nations on the earth landing vessels and circling the planet. As a child, we heard that little green men lived on Mars. They would never say little black men, because that would shake up the whole earth. Imagine black man on earth know that black man was on Mars. Everything done. Check it.
High as Africans. Telegram say, sons and daughters of His Imperial Majesty, Haile Selassie, earth rightful ruler, without any apology say, this is the time when I should come home, yes, Jah. Come on, hold the fort. Come on, hold the fort. Nah, let go. Nah, let go. Nah, let go.
Now, this Mars mission is so serious. In the United States, there's a brother named Elon Musk. And this brother has the concept and the vision of what he call colonize Mars. Make Mars habitable. So what is it about the Earth that is so distasteful that them man, trying to go to Mars? And what is it about Mars that I as black people need to know? Because look here, we can't afford to be so ignorant in these times, Information being exposed through scientific research must open the eyes of those who are religious. There's always been a clash between religion and science. And when you read the Christian Bible that the majority of the black people in the world have been locked into, there is no science, but there is science. Check the first page. Because they have to speak about where we live, We have to talk about where we live. And we live on a plan. We live on a plane. A planet. But the planet is not isolated. Because we know by day there's a bright light shining. And we know that by night we see billions and millions of specks of light. What does the Christian Bible tell us about out there? The same 4 lines. And when we're going to analyze these 4 lines, we're going to be very conscious about English language now. We're going to be conscious about masculine and feminine. And we're going to be conscious about singular and plural. Let us keep these in our thoughts as we explore this one line. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. There's hardly anybody who ever questioned that line. Hardly anybody. Because we get this line as children. In the beginning, God created heaven and the earth. And we hold that as infinite gospel and truth. But let us use this program for a minute to examine that one line. And I'm going to show you how crippling one line of thought can be to the brain of an individual. So what does the word say? It says, in the beginning. Now, 3 words. In the beginning. What do they mean? And people will say, well, it means, well, at the start. But it's the start of what? And once you mention the beginning, you begin to engage now with a concept called time. All right, so we're saying in the beginning, God, singular, created the heaven, singular, and the earth, singular. So we're going to work with that way of looking at the line. In the beginning is a concept of time. God, singular, which is the almighty force, created, which is a verb of action, the heaven and the earth. Now, let us begin with the first phrase, in the beginning. And you have to ask yourself the question, the beginning of what? What beginning is that Bible speaking about? And obviously, people interpret that beginning to mean the beginning of everything. But exactly what is everything? What is everything? So we don't engage in that query because that query requires thinking. In the beginning, are we speaking about the beginning of time? And does time have a beginning? So you have to begin to query these ideas in your own brain. Does time have a beginning? And how does time begin? Now, once that line is passed, we are introduced now to the concept of the creator called God. And God created the heaven and the earth. This is a trick in the language because we are given singular ideas. God is singular, the heaven is singular, and the earth is singular. But in the real world of science, the earth is singular, but the heaven is not singular because what we have are the heavens. Now, proper English would say, in the beginning, the gods created the heavens and the earth. But we are locked into the concept of an idea of heaven and earth. So within the heaven and earth now, where do we fix Mars? Where is Mars located when we talk about God creating the heaven and the earth? Because that notion of the heaven and the earth doesn't seem to include the other bodies that are in the universe, and it doesn't seem to include the galaxies, the constellations, the star systems that make up this everything. So some way, somehow, we get locked mentally into the idea of a beginning by this singular God who makes heaven and the earth. When you hold that ideology of heaven and earth, you leave out Mars, you leave out Venus, you leave out Jupiter, you leave out the solar system itself, and you begin to leave out everything out of everything. And when you begin to look into the concept of heaven and earth, you are what you call psychologically tied now into a concept called hell. Because if heaven is plural, there is no hell. In other words, now, if we say, in the beginning, the gods created the heavens, then we begin to speak about everything. Because science recognizes everything, and everything goes beyond this earth and the solar system. So the idea of heaven and hell is rejected by science because the scientists recognize that they are the heavens, and within the heavens there are planetary bodies, and these planetary bodies organize themselves in systems. So we have a solar system at which the sun is our center. I say these things before we come to earth issues, because the black man who is observing the earth into this pandemic must begin to revolutionize the thinking that is connected to his origin. Because we cannot, if we are chanting that Babylon going to fall and London Bridge going to fall, I cannot afford to fall with the bridge. We have to begin to stand. And we have to stand on our own foundation. Our own foundation is not rested in the biblical framework of the earth. Our history, our culture, coming out of western side of Africa, has an affiliation with a star called Sirius. There's a system, a star system called Sirius. Sirius is recognized as the dog star. The Egyptians also recognize the dog star. So we have to technically lift our heads out of this Garden of Eden origination. If we don't lift our heads out of that Eden, we will not be able to see the power of the planets and the bodies that surround us. There is more to Earth, there is more to life than this planet. And the European man who has his genesis in a cave is now reaching for the stars. It's the same stars where I and I originate from. We are star people. We're not earthlings people. Our genesis is not earth. Our genesis is of civilizations of more distant places. But our religious training locks us into a box called a Bible. It makes it difficult to see beyond the earth. The way water is so important that I am suggesting to the item that the societies of the earth are no longer struggling over oil. The resource that the earth is now struggling for, societies, is not oil. Oil was important 50, 60 years ago when industries were driving the earth. Now energy is coming from the sun, it's coming from the wind, it's coming from water. Water now is becoming almost the most important resource on this planet, even more so than land. And Jamaican people now need to realize that beyond the COVID, there are resources that we must protect. And the most important resource that we should protect is our water supply. Water is more important now than oil. On the African continent, the River Nile is now a site of dispute because the nations along the River Nile are recognizing the importance of electricity from water. And so there is a potential war right in the African continent over this precious commodity. If they find water on Mars, the next argument we're going to get from the scientists is that life was once on Mars. The significant finding on Mars that links Africa to Mars is the Ankh. The Ankh is a religious symbol that is endemic to Ethiopian, Egyptian culture. These have been found on Mars. Are we afraid to declare our heritage outside the planet Earth? Black people, we are galactical people. And there are also terrestrial people on this planet. We need to use this moment to reconnect with our original genesis. We are not from a garden. We are not from the dirt. We are from a more ancient civilization, and we must claim it. Metamorphosis.
Yeah, they say the world is in trouble. But who is the cause? There's so much trouble in this world. Letting them know all I see. Hey, I am here so fire.
So much trouble in this world. Got to make it better for our boys and girls. So much trouble in this world. Don't be the first in the fighting and the world. So much trouble in this world. Got to make it better for our boys and girls. Trouble in this world. Don't be the first in the fighting and the world. It's so amazing. Jamaican exercising togetherness. Everyone show love, no grudge and nobody not fit this. Keep it real, that's how I feel. Unlike the days of Genesis. So much trouble, don't wanna reminisce togetherness. Hey, that govern the premises. Youth are today, are the man and woman not tomorrow. Don't you make them drift. Time is going short. Teacher, the youth them quick. Bang around there with them politics. There's so much trouble in this world. Got to make it better for our boys and girls. There's trouble in this world. Don't be the first in the fighting and the world. You hear me? So much trouble in this world. Got to make it better for our boys and girls. So much trouble in this world. Don't be the first in the fighting and the world. Hey, the world is in trouble and the youth them ask who cause it. Every mouth does silent. Hey, me a beg go no fi pause it. Well, don't fast forward, don't rewind and tell you no, don't start it. The youth them got to go to school and some got to go to the market. This one bad apple spoil up the whole basket. No dig no more grave, no bad bill, no more casket. So much trouble.
Yeah, heap of things going on the planet Earth. But part of the resolution for African black people is to not be distressed. And I have been through worse situations on the planet, and I still here. So it means that it's a matter of thinking it through and not joining the panic. And the panic is real because the earth is under attack. There's a global war and the enemy is taking on everybody. This enemy is the enemy of the earth. This enemy has no friends here. It takes down everybody and anybody. But at the same time, black people, because our history is infinite, we have to draw strength in these times and knowing rather than believing. It's time to know. And we need to know that this book that has held us in captivity from the day they gave it to us, the Christian Bible, Holy Bible, it's in that book that we are locked into certain ways of thinking and certain fears. And so the line that says in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth, it doesn't really mention Mars, it doesn't mention Jupiter, it mentions nowhere else. And if you are unaware of the magnitude of the place that we live, it is really endless. There are no boundaries, there are no borders in this cosmos. As a youth going to primary school, I was fortunate to be exposed to a subject that is no longer taught. It's called astronomy. Yeah, we were introduced to basic astronomy. So we had a concept about how the stars were lined up, and we used to watch them at night and try to find the pattern. We can realize that there's a constellation called Orion. Then there are major galaxies and there are star systems, and that there are stars that when you connect them like a puzzle, it's shaped into animals. And so the idea of the dog star, is something that we black people need to reflect upon. The dog star. What is a dog star? And the importance of the dog in ancient Egyptian culture. The dog god Anubis. The Malian culture, the ancient Malian people, they have their legends and myths connected to Sirius, which is a star in the constellation of Orion. And they recognized their ancestors as the dog gods. The French went there and called them Dogons. But this is really the dog gods. This is black people recognizing their ancestry connected to the star system Sirius. So I am saying to the IDM, we're not part of this making out of dirt, and from dust to dirt we shall come and go. We're not into that story, people. That's a configuration to hold black people's brain in one space and time. We have to move our mentality before the story of the beginning. In other words, now, it's a man write that story in the beginning. And where was that man? Is a man write that story, people, out of his brain? A man tell I earlier tonight said that man who wrote that story was inspired. And I have reason with the man. I say inspired by what and who? And what is the source of inspiration? Inspiration can come from anywhere. You can even drink rum and get inspired. You can look out into the ocean and get inspired. So this one line that this man writes, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, it has trapped us. And most of us are locked now in a time zone. Because once you hold that in the beginning line, then you're also looking towards the end. And many of our people now are trying to explain COVID-19 through Bible. And they go into the book of Revelations because in their brain, that book explains to them everything about the end of the world. Well, there is no end, my people. The planet cannot end. The only way the planet can end is if the planet explodes. Because we have various forms of life on the planet that are millions and millions of years old. And if there's no man life on the planet is still alive. There are trees, there are animals, there are various kingdoms here. So is that man defining whether the earth exists or not? The earth has been existing and will always exist. The concept of a beginning. When we look into the concept of a beginning of what? Individuals beginning egg and sperm. But what about the beginning of time and space? You cannot apply that type of reasoning because space and time are dimensions that have no beginning nor end. These are concepts. So when we begin to free the brain from that mythological beginning, we're going to begin to see the power now of the pigmented melanin man. We're going to realize that our story is not just an earthly story, but we have a galactical history. We begin to realize now that space and time are dimensions that our ancients occupied and conquered a long time ago. The Mayas of Central America show the technology that they were able to travel through space. So space research and space travel is new to the caveman. Can you imagine the Russians are now claiming that Venus is a Russian planet? They sent a vessel to Venus and circle Venus and take some pictures and so forth and so forth. They are claiming that Venus is Russian. These are people who were living in the caves when I and I were circumventing the planet on water and in the air. So I'm saying, no, unless we reclaim our scientific foundation, our foundation in astronomy, our foundation in psychology, we are going to be trailing and waiting for explanations from these white men, from these yellow men, who have no interest in black people except the land and the resources that are in the continent. Because all of these scientific researches and all of these space travels are impossible without the minerals and the resources on the African continent. Make us know ourselves. Make us claim space. Let us claim the universe. Let us claim the cosmos. Let us free our brain from the Garden of Eden and live into eternity.
Brighter days in the eyes of a promised place. Balance and order will clear all your wicked ways. Focus on your dreams, move without no delay. Brighter days in the eyes of a promised place. Balance and order will clear all your wicked ways. Focus on your dreams, move without no delay. Mercy, please, for the things that I have seen now. Oh, for them disrespectful people where I breathe now. Bump to them system, tell me how them I go feel now. Mercy, please, for the things that you have seen now. Oh, for them disrespectful people where I breathe now. Shot to them system, tell me how them I go feel now. Them lock up the ganja man, them never lock up the pedophile. Lock up the ganja man, them never lock up the pedophile. Because them wicked and them nasty and them vile. Them wicked and them nasty and them vile. Them lock up the ganja man, them never lock up the pedophile. Lock up the ganja man, them never lock up the pedophile. Because them wicked and them nasty and them vile. Yeah, wicked and them nasty and them vile. Mercy, please, for the things that we can see now. Oh, for the people who pretending to be free now. Bump to them system, tell me who they gonna be now. Them try to take with spiritual and give with physical. Weakness mentally, visual, subliminal. Messages poisoning the mind of individual. Now what they ganja, them want to become the criminal. Lies, them lock up the rasta man, them never lock up the politician. I know them lifting the ganja band to gain them social recognition. Mental demolition, your action is not beneficial. And yes, them adding the admission so they can gain all the commission. Them come in with them license and them registration. Next are them big companies and corporations. Them want to use my shop with meditation. Them lock up the ganja man, them never lock up the pedophile. Lock up the ganja man, them never lock up the pedophiles because them wicked and them nasty and them vile. Them wicked and them nasty and them vile. Them lock up the ganja man, them never lock up the pedophile. Them never lock up pedophiles because them wicked and them nasty and them vile. Yeah, wicked and them nasty and them vile. Mercy, please. Mercy, please. Them lock up the ganja man, them never lock up the pedophile. Lock up the ganja man, them never lock up the pedophile.
Yeah, is it about Mars or is it about Orion? Or is it about the Earth?
Them lock up the ganja man, them never lock up the pedophile. Them never lock up pedophiles because them wicked and them nasty and them vile. Yeah, wicked and them nasty and them vile.
It's Wow Factor. Shelly, every Tuesday from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. It's entertainment and interaction at its best with features like the Share to Care segment, the Uprising 10 Countdown, and the ever controversial Love Break. Yes, it's the Wow Factor. Your Tuesday mornings will never be the same again.
Remember STYLZ FM on social media. View us on YouTube, STYLZ FM Radio. Follow us on Instagram at STYLZ FM. Like us on Twitter at StylesFM961. Become a fan on Facebook, StylesFM 96.1.
Guess what? STYLZ FM has a new business number for you to call, text, and now WhatsApp. 518-2399. To advertise your business and events, call, text, or WhatsApp us on 518-2399. 518-2399. Don't forget, 518-2399.
The views expressed on this program are not necessarily the views of Native Broadcasting Network or STYLZ FM.
Brighter days in the eyes of a promised
The lines will be open
open
very shortly. 453-876-453-1444. It's a good time to make an input. And of course, overseas, 954-33. Well, I'm going to tell you. Right, 954-338-7973. Good. So if you want to make an input into the Metamorphosis and join the conversation, 954-338-7973 if you're out of port. And if you're at home, 876-453-1444. Hail up Yaya, hail up Amira, Medea, I'll be live.
Them lock up the ganja man, them never lock up the pedophile. Lock up the ganja man, them never lock up the pedophile because them wicked and them nasty and them vile. Them wicked and them nasty and them vile. Them lock up the ganja man, them never lock up the pedophile. Lock up the ganja man, them never lock up the pedophile because them wicked and them nasty and them vile.
Yeah, so that was outer space. Now, for deal with matters at hand. Right where we are now, and we're in the war. 1 year now since the war. It wasn't really declared 1 year ago, but the war started 1 year ago. And now we're into the belly of the thing. And what we're recognizing under the COVID war is that, as I've been saying from the beginning, it has attacked and literally have underrun the institutions and the industries, and individuals are now under great distress. Now, the solution, according to the scientists, rests in the vaccine. And those who are at the head of the vaccination program are individuals who are not very trustworthy in their overall agenda. And those who are in charge of the WHO, which is the World Health Organization, seems to have the whole world in a frenzy. Because it is the WHO that is really giving a sort of set of instructions now to the various governments of the world as to how to handle this pandemic, which is claimed to be a health crisis. But you see, as black people now, this crisis goes way beyond health for I and I. I and I have been fairly healthy in terms of how we eat, in terms of the Rastafari tradition. And for those who are not Rastafarian but have an Afrocentric perspective, there are certain way I and I have been trying to eat. But under the pandemic, your food and the type of lifestyle you live, everything comes under scrutiny. What we're finding out now, I am suggesting to the item, is that in order to endure and to be in a position of strength, we have to begin to examine ourselves as individuals first. We have to begin to examine our unit, what we call our family. We have to begin to examine what we call our community. And by extension, we have to begin to examine what is it we're calling our nation. The COVID-19 has gone beyond health into the economics, into the psychology, into the politics. And where we are today now, there is some drama unfolding in the northern jungle of North America. And here we are observing what I'm calling a meltdown and an end game for an empire that came to strength in the 1700s. In other words, in 1776, the colonies organized to be a unit and began to call themselves the United States of America. And this empire has grown rapidly over the last 200 years, extended itself all across the planet, and involved itself in almost all of the nations in search of resource and control. And it is interesting that at this point in time, the great empire is on the verge of collapse. And what is bringing the empire to a collapse is an enemy that none of them could foresee and that none of them are able to fight. We're talking about bacteria, we're talking about germs, we're talking about virus. And this type of war is not uncommon to the white man. And black people have felt the effects of germ warfare. The Indians have felt it. The native peoples of North America have felt it. So what is happening now should not be so outlandish to those who are accustomed to this type of warfare, you know. War is a method to conquer, and wars have moved in a level wherein they have tried to improve what they call the machinery of war. Guns, stones, bottle, knife, gun, bomb, nuclear, to the point that the warriors decided they wanted to fight a war without destroying material buildings. And there's no better way to fight the war and maintain the property than to fight the war at the biological level. But this method of fighting has caught up with those who promote it. So in the United States right now, there is a show going on called the Trump Circus. And this show really is revealing. It is revealing for those who are discerning and for those who are conscious about the fate of and the destiny of black people. Because the race is at a crossroads. the race of black people, and I've been under the foot of European forces for hundreds of years. We have also seen ourselves on TV with a knee in our neck that the virus, that is a health virus, has brought out the virus that is even deeper than the health one, the one that is affecting our psyche, the virus of racism. And so racism that was apparently, long gone by, suddenly rear up his head, and black people are waking up to the fact that racism never died, that Jim Crow laws are still in existence, and that life in a place like North America will never really reach a level where the black man can say he is home. Because those who control and govern North America have the white black man as an alien within the North American framework. So, how do we resolve this now? Because the circus is on. What I mean by the circus? In 3 weeks or less, the United States will go to the polls. And they are a representation of the greatest democracy on the earth. But something has been exposed, deeply flawed, about this system of governance that is in America. Now, look at it this way. The hallmark of decency within the framework of democracy is a smooth transfer of power at the end of an election. We've recognized that politics is no different from a sport. Politics is sport. It's a game. Elections become a game. And there are winners and losers. The American culture has developed itself to a level where they have been giving themselves great praises for accepting defeat. It's supposed to be a mark of American culture, and you will see it in all of their sports. You must be able to shake the hand of the winner and tell the winner congratulations, and you're supposed to be a humble loser. That is supposed to be the hallmark of American culture, particularly in the realm of politics. But for the first time in the history of America, there is a president who is unwilling to follow the rules of that game. And this president is not just breaking off by himself. A precedent was set in 2000. Because in 2000, George Bush did rob the elections from Al Gore. And that was resolved to the courts. There was a great tribulation in Florida. There was a whole thing about ballots being, the regular thing, ballot box being stolen and so forth, in the Great America in 2000. That event brought the American system to a complete standstill. Gridlock on Congress, gridlock on Capitol Hill, because the Democrats and the Republicans refused to bow. The Republicans said them win, the Democratic Party said them win. Ultimately, Al Gore decided to be the gentleman, and him surrender the struggle, and Bush came through as a winner. But let us remember that Donald Trump was alive and kicking in 2000. And Donald Trump is aware of the shenanigans that took place in Florida, as all Americans should. So Donald Trump now is neither a politician nor a businessman. Donald Trump is the president. And Trump is unwilling to play along with the rules of the game. That if you lose, you shake hands and say goodbye. Trump said, and when was this exposed? Last week, Tuesday. The Americans had a thing called a debate. I call it a debacle. And in that debacle, the two men, them spill them guts. It was a debate. It was like two old white men from the down south tracing each other. And them trace and them trace. And one tell one to shut up. And the other one tell the other one same is the worst. And I tell you, if this is what American democracy and leadership is about, everybody shame. But guess what happened? When them forced Trump to tell them if he would agree to surrender if he lose, Trump said no. Trump said, we'll take you to the Supreme Court. And to make his case, he's forcing in a replacement for Ginsburg, who died a few weeks ago. Because he wants to have the advantage in the Supreme Court. So, guess what happened now? You see, within 3 days, Hollywood take him off of the stage and then put him in a confinement at Walter Reed Hospital. Then remove Trump from the stage, him and his wife, put him under COVID, because there is a problem now. And the problem is not COVID. The problem is Trump's refusal to follow the rules of the game and to surrender if him lose. Because if him don't surrender if him lose, the great American Republic will just look like Belarus. It will look like Bangladesh. It will force the Supreme Court to get involved, and the military men are already anxious. Because if Trump has his whole way, the Pentagon will have to get involved in helping to decide who will be the next president. No, this is no longer the United States. So my perspective is that we must recognize that there are some power structures in America that are outside politics. There's the executive, the legislative, and the judicial that make up the official political framework. But in America, there are two more institutions that carry tremendous power. Obviously, the military and Hollywood. How Hollywood get into this? Hollywood is the seat of the projection of American culture. You remember, say, Ronald Reagan, was a movie star coming out of Hollywood. A lot of the scripts that are written for these politicians are written by Hollywood scriptwriters. So Hollywood is really the avenue for America to project its culture. Hollywood produces movies. Hollywood is the face of America. And the face of America right now is not looking too good with Trump. Especially with his suggesting that he will not surrender if he loses at the polls. No, there's the other side to the coin. There's the opposition to Trump. An older man named Biden. Now the two of them together is like 150 years old. Yeah, and that is the level of type of people now that are contesting leadership in America. Biden can also get COVID. The scenarios are strange in America now, because what I find very unusual is that the COVID went right in the Trump circle and just take out Trump and his wife. And everybody else around him negative. I am seeing the COVID moving like it computerized. There's something about this that is not obvious, but as black people, we need to be focused more on our situation and be able to analyze the future. Because the future within COVID is the next 2-3 years. And the future of America is critical over the next 3 weeks, and more importantly, over the next 78 days after the election. What do I mean by that? Being elected is one thing. Being inaugurated is another thing. And the inauguration is more critical than the election. And after the election, there's a waiting period of nearly 70 odd days before the inauguration. That is a period that when America will be at its lowest, given Trump and his agenda. Because it's within that period of time now, all the challenges would have to be solved, and the solution have to be found that on January 28th, there is a president. In the morrows, in this week, there's going to be another debate between the Vice President Pence and the potential Vice President in Kamala Harris. I think once I want you to listen carefully, because the issue of race very, very critical. Kamala Harris represents the blackjack. But though she's a female, she represents the black queen in the deck. Remember now it's a card pack, you know. And this woman is supposed to symbolize the black vote. Because the black people in America now are being wooed for their vote. Just like in Jamaica. The population is being wooed for their vote. But when this is all over and done, the black people in America will not necessarily be any better off. No matter who becomes the president. Can remember now, you know, they had Obama. And according to one of the Republicans, they got Obama, so they don't need any reparations. Because Obama represents the highest level that a black man can reach in American politics. But be conscious and realize that getting to the highest level of office doesn't have anything to do with the black population. And the black people were expecting Obama to do things for the black people. He can't do anything for you in that office. The higher you go, the more you work for the system. So, the black man in America now, who thinks that the Democratic Party represents them, is in an illusion. Because neither the Democrats nor the Republicans really have the black people's interests at heart. It is time for the black people in America to begin to think about something like Pan-African thinking. Think about their own economic framework, or to link with the countries in Africa to build economic bridges. Because London Bridge is falling down, you know, over there in the UK. And as far as we're concerned in America, Humpty Dumpty sitting on the wall, Humpty Dumpty is having a great fall. Metamorphosis.
1, 2, 3. That's the fire. Things as I do, cause they ain't got no vision. I say we have life and then say religion, yeah. They're always making bad decisions, so I cut them off like a circumcision. I chat the journey slowly but surely, them always in a hurry. We'll never see things as I see because them vision blurry. If I you the youth, them idolize, I know me worry, because I'm have nowhere going. My thing is that the race is for the stiff who can endure. Any color, any creed, no matter rich or poor. Life is special, so I hit me celebrate. Negative, me no accommodate. I got to elaborate, yeah. The race is for the stiff who can endure. Any color, any creed, no matter rich or poor. Life is special, so I hit me celebrate. Negative, me no accommodate. I got to elaborate, yeah. Me raga raga, them say me dirty. Through me face, baby, them say me no clean, but me not cut it. Babylon, me could not please you, cause you know what it. So lastly, I a lion, but the whole of them a puppy. I rather be poor, last than a detour. We are charted from the right road, no matter how we trucky. Them things say them alive, them really not live no life. Cause a long time we know said the whole of them a duppy. My thing is that the race is for the stiff who can endure. Any color, any creed, no matter rich or poor. Life is special, so I hit me celebrate. Negative, me no accommodate. I got to elaborate, yeah. The race is for the stiff who can endure. Any color, any creed, no matter rich or poor. Life is special, so I hit me celebrate. Negative, me no accommodate. I got to elaborate, yeah. No matter what we've been through the days. Rasta
Metamorphosis. Dr. Iman Black in the studio.
Because a long time we know so them a gaze. Hey, now watch my shoes, now watch my pants, because my life done balance. So last year I federal always giving thanks. Me know say some of them well want lock we up like a amp, but tell them say Rasta no ramp. No way, so they can say what they wanna, and they can do what they wanna. So last year I guide us. So watch it, man, me smoke me marijuana. The race is for the stiff who can endure. Any color, any creed, no matter rich or poor. Life is special, so I hit me celebrate. Negative, me no accommodate. I got to elaborate, yeah. The
Yes, people. Remember now, if we open the lines at 11 o'clock, 453-1444. Number for the people who are local. And of course, we have our overseas number, 954-338-7973. Yeah, it's unfortunate the way this planet is being administrated by those who have the power. And power now is grounded in, first and foremost, any society that is trying to establish itself beyond its own borders. And even within its own borders, security is always essential. Order and what they call law. But law is man-made. And whatever laws that man make, there are also men who will spend their time trying to break those laws. Now, under the COVID environment, certain laws are being put in place. They call them mandatory acts, things that you must do now according to law. And if you don't conform to the law, you are penalized. Now, one of the things that has become problematic in the world because of the COVID-19 is the law that surrounds wearing of masks. Now, 1 year ago, if I had on a mask and going to the bank, everybody would rush me and pin me to the ground. I'd probably even lose my life. Because obviously I would be a robber. Robbers wear masks. A year and a half ago. 1 year later, you are being arrested and brought before the courts if you don't have on a mask. What a turnaround in events. So if I go into that same bank now without a mask, them rush me. Yeah? For a different reason. Now, what is it about this law that is creating so much problems? And it's not a Jamaica thing. It's a global response by what we call human beings. And when laws are enacted, they tend to sometimes, most of the time, come from the top down. It's hardly the people them come together and agree that this ought to be a law. It's usually enforced, some enforcement. So the WHO, which is who? A lot of us don't even know who is who and who is behind the who. But who is giving out instructions? And so the mask now becomes a tool within this pandemic. And we are being convinced by authorities that it has value. There are people, of course, now who apply their own analysis and will conclude that, yes, the mask does have a value in certain places and at certain times. And then the other set of people who are saying the mask must be worn at all times. Which is it? Which is it? Is it all times or is it sometimes and when? But there seems to be a general blankets being laid over this mask wearing thing. And I see individuals in their motor cars by themselves with the windows wound up and them have on a mask. I guess in their consciousness, they are preventing the virus from attacking them. There's also the other side to the mask wearing that contributes now to ill health. Reduction in oxygen intake, which actually leads to respiratory problems, which is what COVID will attack. So there's some need to have some more intelligence behind the instructions about wearing a mask and when and where and why not. We'll sort of acknowledge this distancing. But from the Jamaican perspective and from many other perspectives, we don't want to call it social distancing. Because within our framework, social distancing suggests a separation of people based upon class and orientation and material goods, etc., etc. And we don't want to promote that as a form of distancing. So we maintain the term physical distancing, because that's a very practical explanation. Stay away from me. Now, the WHO initially said 3 feet, and then they moved it to 6 feet. I hear them going up to 9 now. So the distancing and the mask, sanitization, these 3 things have become maybe normal now within our way of dealing with this pandemic. But guess what happened? You see, within certain societies, there are people there who think that they have a right to determine their own destiny, whether it means their own death or not. And there are societies who people are now in massive protests against both mask wearing and the lockdown. The lockdown is a very, very hard experience. But those who govern tell us that the virus can only move from people to people, by people. So the idea is that if you keep people isolated, the virus can't move. And some way, somehow, it will just fade away. It brings to front the idea of political organizations. And why is it in a place like the United States, there is no general way of behaving as it comes to mask and the pandemic? In other words, what I'm saying to the item now is that there are societies that are described as authoritarian, wherein it's governed from the top down by strength of force. And there are societies that are claiming to be democratic, where there are certain freedoms of expression and movement and thought. And there's a big conflict now between these type of societies and the pandemic. It appears as though the societies that are authoritarian, like China and Far East countries, those countries seem to be fighting the COVID with greater success than the countries that are what you call democratic and free societies. Because in these free societies, you know, people don't have to follow the rules that are sent out from the top. So what you have in many countries is resistance. And the resistance is not based upon people trying to protect their health. The resistance is on people trying to maintain their economic and their psychological sanity. So in a place like Jamaica, where the government is following the instructions of the WHO and insisting that the people follow what the new word is, the protocols. You know, we're having some serious difficulties now trying to follow these protocols. In a society where the people have abundance of wealth and space, it is easy to practice these protocols: distancing, isolation. In a society where it is dense, and in homes where there is one room or 2 rooms and 1 bed and 4 or 5 people sleeping on it, some of these things become impossible to practice. So we have to find a balance within our own consciousness of how to maintain our health and how to protect other persons. So I'm saying to the item now, we must begin to not just focus on the protocols established by the WHO, but the remedies, which is the nutrition and the health system and the impact that we're trying to have on our immune system. I think the focus from the top down should be on healthy eating, healthy living, healthy lifestyles. Instead, the focus is on isolation, quarantine, lockdown, brutality. And people will reject, after a certain point in time, these enforcements. people are making decisions consciously that them economic health more essential than the crisis created by the pandemic. And so within this confusion, there's also an opportunity to what we're going to call reset. Reset the globe. And in that resetting, we have to reset our own individual thinking first. We can't reset nothing in the society if our thinking remains the same. One of the elements that we have to change in our thinking is our attitude towards industries. We have been socialized to provide service, but we're not been socialized to manufacture. And within the Jamaican framework, Jamaican context, within this pandemic, our focus should be on manufacturing. What can we make? Not just for ourselves, but for the globe. And it is here. We have agricultural products, we have the land, we have water, we have intelligence, we have mind, we have scientists. So rather than bury our fortunes in tourism, we should bury our fortunes in the earth. We should do our planting, not just to feed ourselves, but to transform some of those plants into medicines. It's an opportunity. Once there's a crisis, there's an opportunity. Rastafari should be moving headstrong into developing herbs, spices, nutrients for the immune system. Our medical industries, our people who deal with health here and wellness, there is no focus on the immune system. They're telling us to practice the protocols. We have to become proactive. We have to begin to think beyond COVID-19. We have to begin to think about the world. And we have to think about the position of black people as we go through the struggle. Metamorphosis.
Yeah, man. Before me switch, me rather be poor. Because the journey when me dep on me not detour. Jaja leader is how I follow him, and I'll be sure to keep him close, cause I love him the most, yeah. Jah protect I on the road, yeah. Buckle and chuckle, and everyone can play the game, but everyone a tackle. Them I expect you to come true. So when you come true, them I say it's a miracle. But I give them rope to end themselves. I give them rope to end themselves. Everything is just a matter of time. Every single thing is just a matter of time, yeah. I give them rope to end themselves. I give them rope to end themselves. Everything is just a matter of time. Every single thing is just a matter of time, yeah. Yeah, man, my journey never nice, my road it never barber green. But still, man, I feel chat it cause a part of my dream. Never fabricate no story for no glory. Hard work, that give I the victory. Even when my shoes did I done, me still a walk. Me not smile now, but me way have the last laugh. Let your mind be your strength, all when you can't pay your rent. Life not perfect, but try your best not to have no regret. So why I give them rope to end themselves? I give them rope to end themselves. Everything is just a matter of time. Every single thing is just a matter of time, yeah. I give them rope to end themselves. I give them rope to end themselves. Everything is just a matter of time. Every single thing is just a matter of time, yeah. Yeah, sometimes the man way have the loudest voice just really love talking words. Now have no values and just want you to laugh.
Metamorphosis, STYLZ FM, Portland, enough rain dropping. Swim, my man, swim, come on now.
Remember everything is just for a moment. If you not say Jaja, you not say nothing. Babylon you can't see Zion gate when it open. So I give them rope to end themselves. I give them rope to end themselves. Everything is just a matter of time. Every single thing is just a matter of time, yeah. I give them rope to end themselves. I give them rope to end themselves. Everything is just a matter of time. Every single thing is just a matter of time, yeah. Them say salvation alone lasts. So me I tell them no go seek it fast. All who they want real knowledge, find yourself up above oil college. I give them roughy and themselves. I give them roughy and themselves. Everything is just a matter of time. Every single thing is just a matter of time, yeah. I give them roughy and themselves. I give them roughy and themselves. Everything is just a matter of time. Every single thing is just a matter of time, yeah.
Yeah, everything happens in time. But to say time is a phenomenon that we have to constantly explore. What is this thing called time? And you know, beyond time being an idea, it is also exists within a practical dimension. Because time can be viewed as an energy. And energy, of course, has no beginning or end. Time also exists within certain dimensions. There's a past, there's present, there's future. There is actual time, and there is potential time. There is man-made time, and there is natural time. Now, man-made time comes around by man looking at the sun and the shadow of the sun and create a dial that shows the movement of the sun and break down the sun's movement into periods called hours. And so we end up with the concept of 24-hour day. That is man-made time. There's time that is in nature. And we recognize this time now by the changing of the seasons. We recognize the winter and the fall and the summer and the spring. So once we read again into that book about in the beginning, we have to be aware of what? The beginning of what? The beginning of what? Is it the beginning of time? Is it natural time we're talking about, which has no beginning? Is it man-made time, which of course has some genesis? So, the past and the present, two critical dimensions of time. And there is a future. Because I don't know if you listen to the program enough, I'm into the three-dimensional concept of thinking. It's either or neither. It's a proton, a neutron, and an electron, fire, air, and water. It's a trinity that drives forces in this cosmos that we live. So we look at the concept of time. It also has three dimensions. The past, the present, the future. The past has no beginning. The past is infinite. Because we're talking about time. It's like it's like examining time along the number line. The numbers, the digits, from 1 to 9. And we continue further into infinity. But they can go in the other direction. There's -1 and -2, and we can go along the number line into infinity in the other direction. So we have to free ourselves from this idea of time being able to start in a tangible way. Because time itself is energy that can neither be created nor destroyed. So events, all events that occur must occur in time. Because you have to be able to tell me or explain when. So for every event, there must be a when. And once you ask the question when, you must be able to answer within the dimension of time. So we are locked into an educational view through religion of a beginning in time. So the present, which is based upon the past, is now. And now is a dynamic period. And what is happening now will become the past very shortly. Because events move from the present into the past in terms of how we look at time. And all things become stored as memory in the past. We can project forward from now into what is called the future, but the future does not exist yet. The future is potential time. And in that potential time, we can plan. We can strategize. And as black people, we need to get into that mode more. That planning, future planning, that the Bible tells us we should not do because tomorrow will provide for itself. We have to get over that bump and realize that in order to be liberated in the now, we must have a complete knowledge as much as we can of the past and have a vision or a projection of the future. Now, the white man has projected in his space program into next year, February, when the ship should land on Mars. That is potential time. And the strategy in the present is to meet that potential time. What is our strategy as a people to meet potential time? We can only be in a mode of preparation when we escape the idea of the future being provided by some almighty God. We can only learn to prepare for the future when we get rid of that idea of the future being able to provide for itself. Where that thing come from about tomorrow providing for itself is not a practical philosophy to follow. And the black people who have been locked into the Christian thing have been following that idea that tomorrow will provide for itself, and further than that, the future holds the manna. Because there's a future in which the people plan to escape. It's called, what I'm calling it when the world done and you go off up in the sky thing? Rapture. Yes. So you imagine you have millions of people on the earth waiting and praying for a rapture. And that rapture must come in a potential time. And in that same potential time, the Chinaman, the white man and the Indian planning to control our earth, planning to control the island, planning to control the resources of the planet. So you see that we're on two different pages. They are in the time zone of the present that will take them into a concrete future. We're in a time zone wherein our present will take us into an abstract future. An abstraction doesn't exist on the planet Earth. It's off the planet up into some place else. And guess what? It's not even like you can locate the next place somewhere else in the heavens. You can't locate it. It's not in the solar system. Yet, millions of black people sit on their brain and praying that there will be in a small lot of people who will escape this planet into some mysterious place into the sky. We have to come out of that book. All the prayers of black people for the last 500 years been going into the heaven to where? Garvey tells us that prayers is like energy expended. There is no result. You get no result unless you do. So the doing is the action. And as a people, we must step out of the mode of hoping and praying and begin to plan strategically over the next 5, 10, 20 years. What is Jamaica's future? Next 20 years. Will we have our own water supply still? Will we still be a land of wood and water? Or will we be a land of drought? We have to plan ahead. We have to recognize that time waits on no man. It's a energy that has to be used consciously through planning strategically. Where is the strategic planning in our brain? We have to awaken that power. No. Metamorphosis.
Burn them up, burn them up. Fireman, burn them up, burn them up, burn them up. If them say they got a youth, at a fire burn them down. If them say the youth, them and I gun them down. One ball of fire go run them down. Tell them now you big, I go jump them down. We say fire go burn them down. If them see the youth, them and I gun them down. One ball of fire go run them down. Tell them now you big, I go jump them down. So me go so young. Me and none of them don't travel by any trip. In the seat of corruption, me say many sit. Look like from corruption, them a benefit. Them can't poison me, me now go drink them friendly sip. Babylon, them full of bullets and semi-clip. And them ready to go send in at the semi-quick. Intensive care, me no want any trip. Fireman a bunch and make me tell you this. Fire go burn them down. If them see the youth, them a gun them down. One ball of fire go run them down. Tell them now you biggie, I go jump them down. Fire go burn them down. If them see the youth, them a gun them down. One ball of fire go run them down. Tell them now you biggie, I go jump them down. Alright again. If them tell you say them clean, I'm not buying it. Cause them never speak the truth, them only lying it. Cause them never want you live, them want you die in it. That's why them send them snipers, come spying it. Cause them don't afraid to make your brains frying it. Another hopeless mother will be crying it. If see our son lie down in time, wanna blood him trying it. And then them denying it. Fire go burn them down. If them see the youth, them and I gun them down. One ball of fire go burn them down. Tell them now you biggie, I go jump them down. Fire go burn them down. If them see the youth, them and I gun them down. One ball of fire go burn them down. Tell them now you biggie, I go gun them down. Hey, get a youth, bullet and rifle. It no afraid to make you stifle. But remember, say, life is a cycle. And Babylon we kill you too, them want a title. So we no come round here for idle. Alright, some me burn them in the day and in the night time. Some me burn the wicked man them in the right time. And so I say the first him our lifeline. And that's how you, that's how this. Out of fire burn them down. If they see the youth, them and I gun them down. One ball of fire go run them down. Tell them now you bingy, I go out of fire burn them down. If them see the youth, them and I gun them down. One ball of fire go run them down. Tell them now you bingy, I go jump them down. We say fire go burn them down. If them see the youth, them and I gun them down. One ball of fire go run them down. Tell them now you bingy, I go jump them down. So me go so young. Me and none of them not travel by any trip. In the seat of corruption, me say many sit. Look like from corruption, them a benefit. Them can't poison me, me now go drink them friendly sip. Babylon, them full of bullets and semi-clip. And them ready to go send in at the semi-quick. Intensive care, me no want any trip. Fireman a bunch and make me tell you this. Fire go burn them down. If them see the youth, them and a gun them down. One ball of fire go run them down. Tell them now you bingy, I go jump them down. Fire go burn them down. If them see the youth, them and a gun them down.
Yes, the fire going burn. We're at a stage now where just a chant fire and a thing. It not really bringing up results nowadays. No, you know. We can't just talk things now, you know, burn fire and burn the queen and burn that and burn that. We need to do some tangible things now, you know. Yeah, we're seeing that the chanting and is good. It brings awareness, but it does not necessarily bring the change. Action brings the change. Wait, that sound like politics to call going to Jamaica about. Yes, it's really the verb we want to move to more than the adjective. We want to get into the doing. And the doing really begins with the individual, you know, with all what's going on, you know. Because I see what this COVID-19 is really exposing, you know, is the bare knuckles. It's like fighters and them take off them gloves and it's a bare knuckle fight. Your individual intelligence is required now. We're not talking about education. We're talking about individual intelligence. And I was out in the streets a couple of days ago and I saw a dog start run across the road and a car coming, the dog don't turn back. That to me is intelligence. Dog never go to school. So intelligence is not about books. It's about thinking and resolving and making decisions. And we have to begin to, as a people, as an individual, take responsibility now for our own thoughts. We have to move away from the part about something caused me to do it. And something make me do it. This something that we always talk about. There's always what we call some higher force. Some higher power. And is it make me do it? We have to drop that crutch and begin to hold on to our own selves and begin to take responsibility now for our own thoughts, our own thinking, our own destiny. The book, again, that they give us to hold on to as the book of truth, somewhere along the line of the reading, we get the impression that there's a concept called destiny. Yeah, destiny. And a lot of people will tell you about it is their destiny. And not only do they believe in the idea of destiny, they believe stronger in the idea that there is a thing called predestiny. These things come out of the book that they give us to read. Predestiny now suggests that our individual lives have all been marked out and decided before we're even born. How much are you hold on to that idea? I challenge anybody out there now who hold that idea for call me. Because I'm going to run with the idea out of your brain if you call me. How many people hold that idea that there is some plan set out for them before them born? Because that's a very serious position to put your brain into. And if you think and you begin to think, you see the flaws in that ideology about this predestiny, because it suggests that something is controlling your life before you're born. If the slave owner can get that into your brain, him don't want to watch you anymore. If the owners who captured black people and bring into the West can get black people to think that, don't worry, in other words, something is watching you already. There is something that is omnipresent. You know that word I'm throwing us? Omnipresent, omniscient, this omnitalk. So all of a sudden there's something surrounding us 24/7, watching us. You remember the Santa Claus song? He sees you when you're sleeping, and he knows when you're awake, and he knows whether you have been good or bad. So be good for goodness sake. It's something them plant in the environment to watch you, And the thing is in our brain. So we have this fear in our brain that something outside of us is watching us. And not only is it watching us, it set a plan for we. So if you buck your toe tomorrow, that was destined. And is that your carelessness? No. It has nothing to do with you. So when a man thump in your mouth, just hold it. Because that is your destiny to get punched. No. We have to reject some of these things, man. We create our own destiny through our own thinking. Thinking and destiny, they are connected. And if we turn over the power to think to some forces that don't exist in reality, then we are just nothing more than robots. So destiny now, that they tell us, and for those who believe it, you are locked up into a zone that you can't get out. They tell us about the Jesus the Christ. And then prophesy, them tell you that before Jesus born, a man going to come betray him. Now check the story. The man don't born yet, The man don't born yet. Him don't even know him. The mother don't even know that she will have a child yet. The father don't know the mother yet. But the child of that father and mother is destined to come and commit an act. Now, anybody who accept that now, you're really on your own. Yeah, man, you're really not thinking. So we have to jump out of that box now of destiny and begin to create our own destiny as we did as ancients. When we were building the pyramids and traveling through the galaxies, it was with our own free will. It was not by the destiny of any bigger force before us. So we could wake up tomorrow morning and realize that destiny is in our hands. It's in our brain. And it's what you think and your attitude, your ability to attract and repel forces that decides your destiny. Because we have the power of attraction. We have the power of repulsion. We have the power to pull to ourselves whatever we desire through our power of thought. Desire is like a magnet. And whatever you desire, and if you desire it long enough, you go and buck it up. Whatever you fear, if you fear it long enough, you go and buck it up. So we have to abandon fear if we want to achieve our true potential. And our true potential does not rest in an idea of destiny. Our true potential rests in our own ability to create and to go beyond what apparently looks like ordinary. We are not ordinary people. We, the black people, are galactical people. We are not terrestrial. We never come out of a cave. We travel through space and the skies to get here. I am suggesting that the earth was colonized. Yes, and that Mars had civilization. And that I is at that foundation. We're not new to earth. And so therefore we cannot be slaves to any form of life on this planet earth. There's no form of life that is superior to the brain of the black man. There is none. It's just that the black man has not come to the fullness of his own self. In other words, we have forgotten our Martian history. Metamorphosis.
STYLZ FM, you're my number one. Native Audio Stage and Lighting, now offering stage, lighting, and truss systems for your small and medium-sized events. Whether it's a stage show, concert, drama play, wedding, street party, or club setting, you name it, we'll bring it to life. Call us at 871-5212 or 844-6531. Native Audio Stage and Lighting, a sponsor of In the Know of the Law with Sergeant Delrose Green, and also Real Talk with Lady Cleo and Daddy Rude.
Architects, draftsmen, and surveyors, get your drawings printed in high-quality professional standards. We can satisfy your printing needs. Whether it is for presentation to your clients or for submitting building and subdivision application, make it VJ Printing Services. Whether drawing by hand or with computer-aided softwares, we will plot your negatives and print the copies as you need. We do high-quality white paper printing that is water-resistant and never fades, unlike traditional blueprint. For more information, call VJ Printing at 893-2266.
This feeling is taking over me. I'm so excited.
Feel the euphoria.
Tuesdays from 5 to 9 p.m. with the Master Mixer Musical Maestro Digital Team.
Giving a total satisfaction with melodies and memories by the score. With the widest selection of genres and hits. So you don't know that program you turn up, you know. So you know Patek's a full dance, the one you slap with.
Digital and we are party. Yeah, we flawless. Euphoria the program. Every Tuesday.
5 to 9. Every Tuesday.
With the Musical Maestro Digital Team.
The views expressed on this program are not necessarily the views of Native Broadcasting Network or STYLZ FM.
Babylon, me tell you, we no love what you are going. So that one that name. From in the days of the plantation farm. So that one that name. You have me all the plants, all of the peas and all the corn. That one that name. Then you turn round and one laugh with the skirts and me say again 400 years, blood, sweat and tears, working so hard, never get no pay. 400 years, blood, sweat and tears, working so hard, never get no pay. Ancestry pension that the youth them on the pen pan. Where the money spent pan. Them this Marcus Garvey from Satan. We get the vision for redemption. Too much Middle East tension. biological intervention. One fit on the people them in a skeleton and say again. 400 years, blood, sweat and tears, working so hard, never get no pay. 400 years, blood, sweat and tears, working so hard, never get no pay. But see that now, apple field got on the battlefield, cane field got turn the blood stain field, yeah. Then ask them how them feel. This is say them no real. Oh, bigger judgment again, you see. Now them ships sinking and a straw. See them catching, hear them chatting, yo. See them blast off in them spaceship, and now I see them crashing. Anyway, again, some me say again. 400 years, blood, sweat and tears, working so hard, never get no pay. 400 years, blood, sweat and tears, working so hard, never get no pay. We will forgive, but we'll never forget, yeah. North, south, east and west, Rastafari is the ultimate, the youths them bless, yes. Alright, second the seats up. Now forget how you take what is rightful of mine, yeah. But still I seek and search, one day I know I'll find, yeah. Ooh. What is for me could never be for you, it's true, yeah. Any evil that you do shall turn back to you.
4531444. Yell up Jamax. Yell up the man them in the valley. Yell up the man them in the mountains and the hills. Yell the man them in the parks of California, New York and Philadelphia. New York and all those other places. Say yes man, Metamorphosis live and I them must also stay alive. Because we're living in critical times. So staying alive is one thing. But as black people now, we have been staying alive for 500 years under this oppression and we want to move beyond staying alive. And not just stream to survive. Yeah, some man who are going, boy, I'm not survive, you know. The bees survive and the bat and the rat survive. I want to live. And so I have to lift the meditation above just surviving. Boy, I go on brethren, boy, I'm not survive, you know. Boy, I go on my sister, boy, I'm not survive, you know. Look here, man. We must lift the meditation. Survival is just foundation. The trees are surviving, animals survive, the rat survive, the mouse survive. We cannot be at that same level. We cannot be dignified gods at the same level and talking about survival. We must move to the level where we begin to live and begin to have what is called prosperity. All that again sound political. Hey boy, I tell you, man, I control the word in one way. Yeah, but we have to lift up our meditation. We have to take it out of that book and let our meditation be free from those pages. Hey, it's 50 years now, I don't pray to nothing, you know. I tell you them that. 50 years, I don't pray to nothing. And whatever out there, it have to vex with me. But it not get none of my energy and none of my talk. None of my energy going out into space out there. Just out there so. To dissipate as energy. So, the concept of living, the concept of destiny, all of these things are given to us primarily through our religious training. And so we are told to fear. Metamorphosis. Which button my purse? That one now? Greetings.
Yes, good night, my brother.
Yes, my brother.
Well, I'm tell you.
Tell me, man.
Yeah, I was some on the education, brother. I was college, you know.
No, we no college. We build universities. We no go college.
Your parents are answer when we get the boy from. Eh?
Where is it?
Your parents are alive.
If what?
Your mother and your father are alive.
Them can't die.
Alright. I mean, if them are Jamaica, you still have blow bread.
Well, I don't know where them is right now, you know, but them alive.
Alright, them ever say, but when they get that boy from?
Oh, no man. Never said. You remember it's a man, you know. We not produce boy, you know. It's man we create, you know.
No, but you know, that's how them style is still. But
Me know. So I go on, brother. What you say?
With this immense amount of education where you have, me sure so well, them must ask a question because, you know, so them grow up on a certain, you know, theory.
So what you say now? What you say, boy, what you say?
Me ask you know, I'm out of man. I interview you.
Oh, you interview me? Hey, that might cost you money, you know. But guess what happened now? Hear me now. Let me answer you. You see the sign business where you're going to know?
Yeah.
A 13 sign you have, you know, because 13 months in the year, right?
Yes.
So that's why I mean I respect none of the 12 sign them. Something off. Everything off.
Yeah.
So I'm not in the sign.
We know say he's an anti-establishment man, you know.
No, I'm not anti nothing. Me just positive.
Yeah. So tell me about the man.
You still want to know that? All right. Do you want? Okay, I'm going to tell you. I'm going to give you an idea. When the sun is hot.
Oh, me born near, you know.
When the weather cool.
I like the man ideas, you know. And you, all right. Tell me, you ever ask? You ever tell me the meaning of Jah?
Jah?
Definition.
Jah?
Jah, yeah.
Well, first of all, it's in the Bible, I see it, you know, right? Yeah. So, I'm going to see it in one of the Psalms. I think that's the first place I see it.
Psalm 68.
All right. So, you see, you know where I'm going to. But you want to know if me know where you know, right?
All right. My definition, when we see that book, is the becoming one, the becoming one, and it can become whoever it may.
Okay. A potential a kind of potential force.
Yeah, you like that definition there?
Yeah, it can work because Rastaman from originally never really liked the word God, you know. Because the slave owner used to call upon God and beat it.
Yeah.
So we couldn't appreciate that sound there, you know?
Same. I see me too, because God can be anything. That's all.
What you say?
God can be anything.
Yeah.
But once it's a channel, it's like an outstanding name where nobody can.
All right, yeah, we're more specific now.
Yes.
Yes. Because you remember when man cuss you, them say, God damn, you know. Yeah, man, a man swear upon our God and kill man, you know.
Yeah, I want to nearly did laugh. I'm me alone living around. You make me nearly did laugh. Everybody hears me laughing. I want to walk to this man. And when I say God is a jealous God and in
All right. You get it. We can't, look here.
Yes.
It's a jealousy.
Yes.
It's one of the wickedest sins, you know, on the earth, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it opened a door to envy and wrath and all of the poisons.
Yes.
But the head poison is jealousy.
Yes.
And them tell us that the women, hear this now, them say the woman is jealous by nature. That can't be black woman. That can't be the black woman.
Yes.
So, we've been with jealousy a long time.
Yeah, because in some part of Africa, a man can marry a 6 wife and them live loving.
Not only that, you have some places probably woman marry a 3-4 husband too. Yeah, so it's all about consciousness and awareness more than power, you know. So where are I calling from?
I'm calling from St. Anne, Ebenezer, near Bamboo.
Ebenezer. Yeah, that sounds like a church.
Toby's the name.
Where you live?
Toby's.
All right. And what I name? Toby.
Yes.
So that I related to the King Tubbies?
No, I still love that.
All right. So
I mean, to not that jealous now. In here, say, man, some man a build one tower.
Yeah, and get vexed.
Somebody tell him, man, him go there.
Hey, Virgin. Me know. Stories.
Yeah.
All right.
If I try now, you can't tell us, yo, you make it look, it's really a joke,
But guess what happened? You see, within our seriousness, humor important,
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Within all of the struggle and all of the fighting, we have to have a little space of humor so we can balance ourselves before we go back into the real struggle. See?
Yeah, man.
But give thanks for the link.
Yeah, man. I have a few more things to ask, What is it? Give me 3 things that you would like to see happen in a black race. 3 things.
3 things.
Yes.
First one is to wake up.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think we're still in a slumber.
Same.
I think the second thing is to recognize the importance of family, woman and man and children.
Yes.
And the third thing now is knowledge and power.
Knowledge and power.
Yeah. And power meaning all forms of power, as Garvey say. Military, economic, scientific, every aspect of power, we need to be able to access that.
Yeah. And the women of Jamaica, do you feel that the women of Jamaica is leading the men astray?
The man, them leading themselves astray.
Okay.
Yeah. You see, when the man straighten up,
yeah,
and when the woman straighten up, because everybody have to straighten up,
Yeah.
But right now, the man, them leading themselves astray, and the women trying to lead themselves, period.
Okay, because in the book, them always say the woman always cause the man to...
Hey, look at the man. We know all them story there here, sir. We have our women as important people, as leaders of our society. We don't have them as no devil and no she. We know of that. We leave the story book alone.
Yes.
Give thanks. Here, sir.
All right, everything. Yeah.
Yes, I.
Bless up yourself because the man has immense amount of knowledge and I appreciate how the man think.
Next time. Yeah, go through.
Like when you say you go all America and stay there for a while, I think enough of the knowledge you get. I don't like Jamaican people to go there to really see our life. Really.
Yeah, I think people must travel.
Yes, sir.
But not like the pilot, the plane only and go back, You have to come out too and mix with the people.
Yes.
All right. Give thanks.
I am ready. Bless up yourself and keep up your good work.
All right.
And we will link again. Yeah?
Definitely.
All right.
Yeah, WhatsApp coming through. Pele and Peter, my Philly angels. And these angels are black with no wings. Ear of all the Philly man them, see? And what Pele saying now, I'm saying the concept of a greater life to live and a greater consciousness has missed the control minds of our people. We need a mental revolution where we begin to look at the stars and take our minds off the ground. Get knowledge and power and straighten our existence. That is coming out of Philadelphia, straight to the heads of the listeners of Metamorphosis globally. Yo, Pele, I don't know, all the man must run so higher. Yeah, man, tell me where I go on. Here, sir. our story from our perspective. That is the most important thing when we talk about stories. Whether it's his stories, her stories, my story, or our story. The critical thing about a story is the perspective of the writer. And so the same thing about the book of Genesis, which is a story. Where was the writer? Where did the man stay and listen and watch God create all these things? When there? Where was the writer? Did he observe the first day and the morning and the evening and the morning were the first day? And then all of a sudden, let there be light, and there was light, and yet there was a sun. The sun was made after there was light. It's pure confusion in that story, But because we're not patient and critical in reading that one page, we get it from Sunday school, and we just absorb it, and we just run with it. But this, if we want to free ourselves from confusion, we have to free ourselves from the confusion in that story. That story that tells us where we begin as black people. Can you imagine some people telling us where we begin by handing us a book? And we open the book and the book says in the beginning, and that's how we just put our consciousness. In the beginning is no different from once upon a time. There is no definitive point in geographical, historical time to start. So it's a once upon a time. So any set of people who hold that line as the beginning of their explanation of themselves, them in a fairy tale. And where now in the book of Revelations can we find COVID-19? Where is the explanation by these religious people about COVID-19? Everybody running and hiding. I don't hear no more prophecies anymore. I hear nothing more about the blood of Jesus and COVID-19. How is it we're not calling upon these things that we have been told is our source of our power? Where is the spiritual power now to fight COVID-19? It does not exist. The only spirituality that we can draw upon is spirituality in our original beings, where we come from and what connects us to nature. That's the important thing to discover during the COVID-19. What connects us to nature as black people? So, the moment to interrogate fearlessly is now. Because all the God what them teaching about, hiding from COVID too. The preachers are hiding. All of the agents are hiding. Because what is going on is outside of religion. It is into the dimension of science and physics and psychology. And we're not trained as people to investigate those areas because them is white man areas that white man deal with philosophy. And white man must deal with science. So we don't want our children to become scientists because our concept of science is obia. And our concept of obia is something destructive. So we have to reverse the curse. We have to reverse our methodology of thinking. We have to abandon that idea of destiny and begin to create tomorrow and the following day through our own thought processes and what we do. Because the doing part is important. The ancient Egyptians were scientists. That's why they could build the pyramids. That's why they could calculate and build a calendar. The calendar that the ancient Egyptians used had nothing to do with what we are on today. We are on a calendar that is revolving around the year of the Lord. It's the same Bible Christian construct we're locked into within time. The Chinaman is on his own calendar. The Jew is in his own calendar. He has his own Jewish holidays. The Ethiopians have their own calendar. So there is something amiss once we are locked into this Judeo-Christian year of our Lord. There is no change in the year of our Lord. Every year is the same within the year of the Lord. And who is this Lord? You know that there's a listener to STYLZ FM. I'm not going to really call her name directly. But when I met her, she was an empress. So let us say she named Empress G, for example. And a few months later, I hear them call her Lady G. So I said to myself, how she move from Empress to Lady? And you know, the reality is that we don't really recognize the title of Empress as much in the Western world. Because Empress is really no different from the Queen when we talk about black people in Africa. But this is a lady thing now. It's a white man concept, you know. I remember when I was going to school and them teaching us about masculine and feminine. The Lord is a masculine and the female is a lady. In other words, there is no lordess. Because there are certain English words now, them say you can't put S behind it, you know. It's a separate word for the feminine. It's like how them say about God and Goddess. You're supposed to have Lord and Lordess, you know. No, it's Lord and Lady. The lady is a white woman. It's a white woman, them calling lady. So in a black woman in our consciousness and calling herself lady, she have to revisit the term. Just revisit the term and maybe you can reclaim Empress. And my friend, you may talk to, you know, a foreign living, I'll call your name, you know. But you are my Empress still, even though I'm trying to call you lady. The ancient Egyptians understood space. They understood a technology that they could raise tons of stones high up into the sky. What type of technology were these Africans using? And when they went into the pyramids and began to examine the drawings on the wall, they saw images of people with space helmets, man with space suit. The Egyptians recognized a god called Osiris. No, Osiris is not very far from Sirius, you know. And Sirius is a dog god. And the Sphinx in Africa, in Egypt, is directed towards Sirius, which is the brightest star. Look here, the point I'm making, our history is not terrestrial. We, the black people, have a galactic history. Don't make the man them keep us locked down in a book and tell us about we're coming out of a garden. And not only a garden, them said garden in Africa, so we are happy. It's a family said the garden in Africa, we are all right. We're happy about it because it's Africa. But the garden is an allegory. It's not a reality in terms of African tradition and history. It's a metaphor and a space to explain the origin of white people. Because you check Adam and Eve, there could never be black people. There's no historical evidence of any people of melanin coming out of the dirt, being made by dirt, and the female being made of a bone out of a dirt man. We're not in that history. That's not the African story. And the Egyptian culture speaks to travels. It speaks to technology. It speaks to creation of the mind, of the brain. We have experience of chemistry. The people of Kemet were black people because Kemet means black. And Chem means black. And chemistry is the study of blackness. Metamorphosis.
Promised land. Yes, the promised land. Oh gosh, now to the promised land. Well, make a step down to Asmara. Then we stopped in Addis Ababa. Made our way to Shashamani land. Riding on the kids highway to the promised land. Going to the promised land. Oh gosh, to the promised land, oh, to the promised land. Well, there's plenty of land for you and I, by and by. Lots of food to share for everyone. No time for segregation in the promised land. Oh gosh, take me to the promised land. promised land. Oh, that's the promised land. Oh, 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 yeah.
Greetings, Metamorphosis.
Yes, Dr. Black.
Yes, man.
I know that the man is a art and so forth. I mean, I know if the man have like a bookstore or so.
Yeah?
Yeah, I have a bookstore.
Yes, I do. Yes, in Kingston.
All right. I don't know if the man start the philosophy and opinion of Marcus Messiah Garvey.
Not stock, but a few copies.
Oh, you sell that too?
I have a few copies, but I don't have a whole heap of stock of that one, you know?
Okay. Because me I search that book then, that book then needed, you know?
Oh, this sound like Mamumba, true?
No.
Who this?
Rasta Jeans and D Field.
Say that again.
Rasta Jeans and D Field. Duck and Field.
All right. Got you, yes. So you say about the book now?
Yeah, man, I want that book, that my brother.
All right.
I want to know where I can find your place of business.
All right, here we go. You're going to tell me how I can link you.
You can link me with this number, 884-4069.
Hold on, 884
4069.
4059.
Yeah, or 8514198.
851
4198.
4198. What's that? Duckensfield?
Yeah, man, Duckensfield Center, man.
Yeah. All right.
All right, my brother.
All right, give thanks. Here, sir.
Bless up yourself.
Yeah, man. Take care.
Yes, sir.
Away from the Mississippi, a Negro man come away from the sinking sand. Negro man come away from the Mississippi, a Negro man come away from the sinking sand. For the road and the river just keep rolling. Oh, that river just keep rolling along, along. And sing the dark sayings of old. Doth not wisdom and knowledge stretch forth their hands? Unto you, O children, I cry. All the words of our mouth speak righteousness. All the days of our life will tell. Take heed of the works of Jehovah, or man you will surely fail. Sorrowful, your folly is your reward. Better a dinner of herb where love is than feasting. Shower me with blessing, yeah, yeah, Jah bring forth honey, don't stop. Bring forth milk and honey, don't stop. Let the newsman write
Well, this one is for the black family. Four corners of the earth. Yeah, 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 yeah. Fire burning. Fire burning. Keep it blazing. On and on. Black liberation. I chant black liberation. Look all of them are putting up operation. Tell England, say we make it preparation. For reparation. Black liberation. I chant black liberation. Look all of them are putting up operation. African nation, we make a accommodation for repatriation. Boy, the time is now, no hesitate and no procrastinate. Educate yourself, cause that's the key when them try to navigate. Babylon now office.
Yes, the movements of the people requires a liberation tradition. No, the black population can no longer embrace emancipation, because emancipation was just a trick process that let the white man free. It set the white man free from his moral obligations of reparations. Yes, emancipation was a favor done for the white men, and the black people got scammed. One of the biggest scams from black people, both in North America and in Jamaica. This emancipation process that freed the white man of his moral responsibilities of repairing the damage to the race. The black man in America was promised 40 acres and a mule. Him get 40 kicks and enough jail sentence. Yeah, that reached him. In Jamaica, the emancipation, the people told that they were free and were landless. So these are deceptions that we are now seeing now that COVID has stopped the world. And realize that enough things that we think that we have, we don't have. And a lot of things that are functional in the truth don't really benefit I and I. So we examining this notion of governance in the most recent times. And on the island of Jamaica now, we get trapped in a thing called a parliamentary democracy. And what COVID has, beyond COVID-19, Jaco, check this out. Our parliamentary structure set up to have two groups in opposition of each other. But the structure of the parliament, how it's designed, set them up to face each other as adversaries. You see, because of COVID-19, and they have to move it now to the convention center, they're now sitting in a shape that is almost circular. And you think shape and structures don't count. The circular shape removes that animosity, that clash. And so, if you look into other societies, when their lawmakers gather, it's usually in a semicircle. In the belly of Rome. Yeah? So, the nature of how your government is structured have a lot to do with the behavior, because environment affects behavior. You may not accept it, but it's the people who live in square houses, them have some square behavior. It's the people who live in tightly dense buildings, very uptight. People who live in buildings that are squares and closely built, it affects them persona. They can become very angry, they feel boxed in. So I'm just saying that to say to you now, it's a shape and structure influence behavior. Colors. You see those range of things now. Within our political structure, we should take a lesson and cut out this parliamentary framework wherein the opposition face each other like them in a rival. That them are fling things across the floor. And people in the street now fling gunshot across the street because them see the leaders flinging things on one another. We can take a picture, take a page out of this experience and maybe transform the parliament into something more circular. It may change the attitudes. Yeah, both of the participants and of the people on the outside looking. But that is just one thing about the shape. Our Jamaican parliamentary thing now is an inheritance. An inheritance from the colonial master owners, from slave owners. So what we have inherited was never set up to benefit I and I from the beginning. Let us be fair enough to recognize that the type of government that was established by the British was never established to benefit the 750,000 black people or the 500,000 who were turned out to the plantations and told that they were free. So we have been running with that from 1655, the British leadership under the crown. And we have done all kind of twiddling to bring it to a level wherein it apparently is manageable. But it's the COVID showed all the flaws of this system. It showed, we say, the Queen's loyal opposition and the Queen's loyal government does not serve the majority of the black population. The structure was not designed to take the resources out of the country and give back to the people. This structure was designed to take the resources out and ship it abroad. Remember now, it's a colonial society. It's not about building the colony, it's about building the mainland. So Jamaica resources have always been trickling out of the country. Sugar, everything goes into Europe. So we have a governmental framework that is not about investing in the nature of the population. It's about extraction. So we have to change that framework if we want to have benefits coming to the massive population. It's unfortunate that those who govern don't really want that change, because that change now will be a shift in power. And shift in power will also mean a shift in economic status. What we have now in Jamaica under the COVID exposed is that we have a great disconnect between the vast majority of people who create what is called an informal economy and the other set of people who call themselves the private sector. And it's apparent now that COVID-19 has made us aware that the focus of the government is not on the informal economy and the greater majority of the population, but on the formal economy, which is smaller and is dominated by tourism. So some shifting need to be made in the way we approach the resources of the country. And the shift cannot be made if we maintain this type of parliamentary government where there is a central government and them run the whole island. We have to break it up a little bit. And I'm suggesting all the while that we break it up regionally. The model that we can follow for governance, if we try to go to the ancient Egyptian model, is theocracy. We don't really want a priest and a religious men run the country. Then they introduce us to democracy. I will see the mockery in that. It's all about the wealthy. So government have to rich for the rich and by the rich. What else do we have to face, to contend with as a form of government? We can create something that suits us. And what suits Jamaica, as far as I'm concerned, is a type of government that allows regions to make decisions for themselves. So the FIFA is a governing body, is the world's largest governing body. FIFA run the world football. And FIFA have a very small executive that runs the whole world. Check this out now, A small executive that governs the entire planet activities. And how do they do that? They regionalize the world. There are 6 confederations, and each confederation has a certain level of autonomy. You make decisions according to the region, according to the climate, according to the people, according to the culture. So we need to bring that ideology now into Jamaica, wherein the regions are dealt with according to the behavior and the culture. So for example, Southeast, in the Jamaica where we live, where I am right now in STYLZ FM, St. Thomas and Portland, St. Mary and St. Anne's. We should not be struggling to grow onion and fighting to grow the things that are dominant in St. Elizabeth. We should be focusing on what is naturally resourceful in this region. So the land, the water, the sites, the culture, these things are not in St. Elizabeth. In other words, each region has its own identity. and strengths and weaknesses. And if we move along that line where we begin to develop the regions, we will break down the PNP, JLP, tribalism. Because the focus would not be on the parties, the focus will be on the region. And we can develop regional unity. We can develop a greater national presence if we begin to draw from the regions. It happens in education where we have these 4 regions. The police have these 4 regions. We need to formalize that and give each region now some political autonomy. Ultimately, we don't need 63 people to govern an island this small. We need enough people for efficient governance that a region like St. Thomas to St. Anne, we just need one governor for that region. We can have governors for each of the 4 confederations. And then you have the lower officials to run the place. Resources, taxes could be channeled into each region for its own development. So I wouldn't have to be struggling from above you to get to Port Antonio because of no road. Because town don't want the road bill. That would never happen. The St. Thomas and Portland and St. Anne would have decided, look, the road have a bill. And the road with a bill. And town have all them corners. So after 60 years of independence politically from the Queen, which is not true, we need to reassert ourselves now as a people. We have to send the Governor General and his wife packing, give them a retirement money, and shut down King's House. All of the custos them must go find real work. And we begin to search for efficiency in governance. The first step is not just getting rid of the Queen, it's getting rid of the Governor General and his cadre. And take that 300 million that the Governor General gets and pump it into security and pump it into the teachers. Reformat the Jamaican governance structure. The Queen's model is not working. Central government does not work anymore. There are several Jamaicas here, several levels of Jamaica, and we have to begin to free up the resources, free up the entertainment industry, so Portland can have its center of excellence for culture. Everything can go to town. People in Western Jamaica don't want to go to Kingston for everything. People in South Central want their own airport. The people in Mandeville and St. Elizabeth need their own international airport there. In other words, every region should have an international airport. Every region should have an international playfield. Every region should think about its own region, about its own self. And this way the nation can come together under a different vibration. Metamorphosis. Silence, they say, is golden.
I know enough of them would have want we gone. I know them would have want me gone. It done every day and I wish we all much time on the hands, you know. But why would a king ever fear a fall? A king would never fear them. So what them a go do when them hear this war? Bang bang. No take tellings, want me no fi say this. Man, we see your farm and gone in and you lettuce. People mean your harm, you can't tell what a friend is. Grudge you for your paper, scorn you for your pennies. When you no see me gone, forget replenish. Back up in the morning, can't forget the message, no. Avocado, she feel for me, senny. Yeah, man, banana is sweet, pushy belly. Jeez, I want make life sweet, so like a jelly. Climb feet, it hard, can't easy, so forget it. Sang the pan the radio, video pan it telly. Love in a me heart, me a spread the catchy medi.
People of your expectation. Will they love you? No guarantee. People of your salvation. Need salvation. Will they save you? No guarantee.
the most killer track.
Listen to me now, brother.
Where you stand,
contradicting yourself.
Chronic Salvador's tell them say.
Listen to me now.
Contradiction is global.
Yeah, contradiction global. The madness taking over. Too much man in a mix up. One bag a mix up. Rasta and him so.
Contradiction global. Still good conquer evil. David still struggle yet make one wall a vibe, yeah. Too many idolize badness and slackness. Island in the sun just falling in a darkness. One love and one heart where the heart there. Nowadays you no cool if you no heartless. Flashy with a 9 like you lawless. Like justice I buy out a wallet. Well that a 6 for a 9 and a 9. You know the waste then a sentence to life car. Ruben, what we are gonna do them? Slew them. Who them? Well done. Yo, so me say again, slew them up bare feelings, them a carry. Them done bow already and them can't say them sorry, yeah. Slew them up bare feelings, them a carry. You know want them something again? When you want your weak name. Who them a coulda what that them a try? Them got this king still I say what you all of them die, yeah. Who them a me go see them with them spell? Them this money well and them so gonna hell, yeah. Who them a coulda who them walk us? Them this Marcus I know them all bite the dust, yeah. Who them a me go tell them this flirt? Tell them can't this mama hurt. You know see a dead man them, dopey man them. Not no with them the fire fi burn them. Them don't condemn a be a dead man them.
Yeah, the time that we're in now, you know, we're in the final 10 minutes of this metamorphosis. And I want to really also make mention about this period of time that is normally considered back to school. And in the Jamaican situation, back to school is really a great moment of industry in Jamaica. And this time around, so many people now bankrupt who will be profiting from the back to school adventures. People build school uniforms. People invest their money and time into preparation for equipment to go to school. All of a sudden, everything has gone online. So what a shift in the money. The man with the money. The man with the money. May I tell you, and let me tell you about money is the root of evil. Give me more evil, if that is what it's all about, so I can do more good. No, that's a serious thing. Because, you see, what the COVID-19 is exposing, you know, is the great inequalities and the disparities that have been around us all the while, you know. But we're so busy trying to stay in the treadmill. We're so busy not trying not to drop off. And what they call hustling. And you see, two things slow down, stand still, and the thing, and the wheels stop turn, and the cog them start drop out. Yeah. And we start seeing the frailties within the whole global structure. It's a globe being exposed to us, you know. One thing, I'm sure, will never be the same again. This thing that them call globalization. I think COVID crushed that for good. And globalization was a concept being developed by the white Americans to push Americanization and them lifestyle around the whole planet. That's what globalization was, you know. America in everybody's life. Through the media, through television. And all of a sudden now, the globalization thing come to a standstill because all the airlines, number one, stop flying. And when the airlines stop flying, all the communication kind of slow down. When countries begin to put up restrictions about entering, it's a return to a state that the world didn't know one time, you know, when everybody was just for themselves. And nationalism and racism and ethnocentrism rise to the top. So, make us see what's going on, and then we have to ask the black people, know what position we taking. Since everybody closing up them border, everybody defend their own health conditions, what are we defending? Are we just further out there? We know nothing? We can't defend nothing either. You know the problem is? We don't have no homeland where the whole we call the homeland, and that a beat way. The China man can say, boy, China a film homeland, you know. The Indian man never go there yet, but him say India a film homeland. No white man never go to Europe or America yet, but them claim those places. Black people, where do we call our home? I would not be dare to call it our home either, you know. But where in our meditation do we consider to be our home? So you see, when we get to the point where we start to say Africa is our home, whether we live there or not, it will be a radical shift in our ability to come as a organized force within this dramatic struggle. So races now are united, gender uniting, women uniting, the Muslim uniting, is the black people now. But what should be our foundation of unity? It can't be religion and it can't be politics. It has to be science. And what about us that is scientifically similar that we can rally around? And I'm going to tell you, is one thing all black people have in common that is based in a science and not religion. And that is the pigmentation in our bodies. Pigmentation in our eyes and our skin and our hair is a scientific entity. Because through that powers of pigmentation, we are able to connect with the environment and with each other through non-verbal communication, through vibrations. We are closer connected to the green plants than we are to the gorillas. The Caucasian is closer connected to the gorilla than to the green plant. Check it. Metamorphosis.
Arise, arise, each and every Rastaman. We're gonna shake them down, yeah. See,
Yellow Rastafari. This one is written in the loving memory of one of the Nyabingi elders, Bongo Kasha. Hot fire, hot fire. Ayanaya Jaja earthquake. All them to shake them down. Rastamana Jaja earthquake. All them to shake all the wicked down. Ayabingi mana earthquake. All them to shake them down. Rastamana Jaja earthquake. All them to shake all the wicked down. Lord, well, yeah. Anything we do, I say, cause so much eruption.
Listeners, you are encouraged to contribute to the STYLZ FM stream. Just go to the website at www.stylzfm.com, www.stylzfm.com. And when you get there, you just click on the donate button, and that will send you to the PayPal account. And that's the STYLZ FM account, and there you make your contribution to make sure that the motion continues on STYLZ FM. And particularly, keep Metamorphosis alive. Yes, streaming. And the donation doesn't have to be $1 million. It can be, if you choose to. But it can be any amount. And the larger the better, of course.
So remember, all highs is unlost. So remember, all highs is unlost. Let's move constructively. Be at the right place at the right time. Let's move constructively. Be at the right place at the right time. Let's move. There's some little girls and boys in the ring.
So Metamorphosis is going out. I'm thanking Jocko, standing strong as the engineer, keeping the thing flowing. And as I talk about flowing and rivers and water, I want to remember that water is going to be the new resource of which nations will fight over. And Jamaica is a land of water. We must put some things in place to secure our water. to the point where maybe we can even export, not just overseas, but export even to St. Elizabeth and Hanover, and export water to the basket, to places in the island that produce the food. And as I talk about water, I need to go out on this note. The longest river in the world is the Nile River. The Nile is in Africa. Now, there's no river that can flow uphill. No river can flow uphill. The River Nile flows from the south to the north. No river can flow uphill. So south to north must be downhill. So if you're going north, you can't go up to the north. You go down the north. And when you want to come check Iman in the south, you have to come up south. Iman said that. Iman Black. Out.
Whispering inside of me.
Water more vital than oil.
Oh yes, we are going. We are going.
Water is now on the stock exchange of the United States.
We are going now. We are going.
Indisciplined leadership breeds an indisciplined population. Indisciplined leadership breeds an indisciplined population. Self-control is the key.
Every nation upon creation pray. One stop. We are going now.
This is Styles 96.1, the People Station.